Let's go around the horn. Hey, Brian, how you doing there?
Yeah, great, Joe. Good to be on tonight. Look forward to the conversation.
All right, Jonathan is with us here tonight. Good to see you, Jonathan. All righty.
Hey, everybody.
So let's just get right into some of the stuff that's happening with the taxes, because I know you're going to be taking off pretty soon, Brian. But you were out of Lake County with the fair tonight. How was that? How was all that going?
Yeah, it was several days. Leonard Gilbert did a great job of being there for every hour. We got about 700 signatures.
Which is excellent, by the way. Absolutely excellent. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the as far as the number of people, I said it was probably about a 90-10. 90% of the people that came up spoke to us that were, they were in favor of the whole movement. Only about 10% of the naysayers, and what I found out is most of the naysayers were really employed in some government, whether they're teachers or firefighters, or they were more worried about their livelihood than freedom and liberty for future generations. And that's generally when we ask people, do you want to sign? They say, well, I can pay my property taxes. And I said, well, what about your neighbor down the street? Invariably, they say, well, that's their problem. So this whole concept of love thy neighbor is, it's really going by the wayside, and it's really quite unfortunate.
So you would say that, the people that do not want to sign the abolish of property taxes and all that are people that are benefiting from the property taxes directly, like the fire, the police, things of that kind.
And it's really unfortunate that the legislators are really they started the fear mongering already, and saying that you won't have any police or fire, and the roads will be back to dirt roads and that sort of thing. And it's just not true. There's not a problem with generating income in the state. The problem, it's a spending problem. And as Commissioner John Plechik has said many times on the podcast, it's we got to cut spending. We have to take a look at the spending in public schools, which account for about 2/3 of the property taxes. And as far as police and fire, we've got to get the legislators to rethink the local government funds, because what they have done is they have starved the local communities with the tax revenue that prior to 2011 was going to the local communities, but the Kasich, to solve a problem in the state budget, cut the local government funds, therefore, and they haven't increased it at all. And then there's a priority problem, as far as I'm concerned, with the state legislators. Ohio is number one in the state for the funding of public libraries. They have, up until this last budget cycle, they had been spending more money on libraries than they had police, fire, and roads. And in my thinking, everybody loves libraries, but I have to say that I'm not willing to give up my house for a book. I'm just not going to do it.
Let me ask you a quick question on that, because I've heard you say that before about we're number one in supporting the libraries and giving all this money to the libraries and stuff. But what is the basis of why are we doing that? Any idea? It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I can't find any documented evidence that there was the decision by the legislators, way back when, that we've got to pump more money into libraries. I would dare say they probably have a special interest lobbyists, for libraries. I think that's what really happens. All these special interest lobbyists are they're holding fundraisers for the legislators, and the legislators they're moved if you're giving them money to their campaigns, because the two top priorities of any legislator is to protect themselves and to promote their careers. And unfortunately, our public sector has outgrown the private sector's ability to pay for the services.
Yeah, absolutely, on that one.
It's just not sustainable. And why would we continue with a failed public school model? It doesn't. Jonathan has been talking about this also for many months now. When we can give you chapter and verse of all of the school districts and the reading proficiency, math proficiencies. my goodness, some of these children cannot even read and write when they graduate from high school. And it's very obvious in Lake County when the kids graduate from high school and they want to go to Lakeland Community College, all of them have to take remedial classes. And so now citizens have to, we now have to pay for the public education, K through 12, and now we've got to pay for remedial classes, with a community college. It's just not, doesn't make sense at all.
No, it doesn't make sense. I want to read something here about a school district in Cincinnati. They're referred to, they call them, well, it's called Mount Healthy City Schools. Mount Healthy City Schools. And it's not healthy at all there because listen to this, in Cincinnati, it's in a poor area. They got 2,881 students. But the property values rose 80% between 2019 and 2024. 80%. How do you like them apples? The property values. Now, at that same time period, though, enrollment fell 39%. 39% decrease in enrollment, and yet those property taxes accelerated like that. The district is in financial emergency. Every levy gets that it puts on the ballot is failed, which I think is a great idea because the people have said finally enough is enough. But I mean, there's just a correlation there that you think that if you keep pumping enough money into the school districts and stuff, enrollment's going to go up. Everything's going to be wonderful. You're going to have all these kids graduating, going to Harvard and stuff like that. I would dare say that particular school district, probably most of them aren't even graduating, let alone going on to college or anything like that.
Yeah, we have a basic societal problem. At the fair, I happened to bump into the judge of the juvenile court in Lake County, and I was asking him about what's the common denominator when you see all of these children that are before the juvenile court, and he was saying that is the breakdown of the family structure. They're being raised by their moms. The moms have to work. They're not involved in sports activities, so there's a lot of idle time. So it is a societal breakdown in our family structure, is causing. So it's not just all schools. I mean, we're in the society is a problem. But what I'm also telling people is that this is more than a dollar and cent issue. As bad as that is, by people being priced out of their home, it is a freedom and liberty issue. I ask people, is private property ownership, is it important? And I can see them, when I ask that question, you can see their mind thinking about it, and it should be an automatic, of course private property is important. If you don't think it is, just take a look at the first tenet of the Communist Manifesto, where they'll try to remove private property altogether. Private property is the foundation of our freedom and liberty, and it allows families to get out of poverty through the transfer of the wealth from one generation to the next. But, Joe, it's even a bigger problem than that. As I pull the curtain back, I see it as a spiritual war of good versus evil. And this whole thing of dumbing down the children, through the educational system, it's a real thing. I used to think that was, a conspiracy theory, but I don't believe that anymore. There was a video of I can't remember his name, a comedian that back in 2005 he talked about the dumbing down of the kids, which is a real thing. This was a plan. This was all part of the plan to make the average citizen just compliant. They just want obedient workers. They don't want people that are too smart and can really, cause some problems for the elites in our society. And so I can also talk about, let's say the Republican Party in Ohio. Fraud, waste, and abuse is a cost of doing business. And I just saw another video where they're now tying the Somali fraud into Minnesota. This is all done under the eyes of the Republican Party. And it's just not acceptable. So I'm thinking that, when we had the first energy, with Householder and all that, I thought that was just a one-off. I'm thinking, we either got extreme incompetency in our state government, or we've got the most corrupt state government in the nation. Something has got it's just not sustainable.
Well, we do. We are known for that. We are known for a lot of corruption in our state government and stuff. There's no question about it. And the price of doing business is what
why do we just accept it, Joe?
DeWine's administration said that the waste, fraud, and abuse, and the billions and billions of dollars. He said that's just the price of doing business. I don't know any business that deals and is involved in fraud as a means of a way of doing business, unless we've become that corrupt. That corrupt is as a political party or something. But that's DeWine speaking. That's not the Republican Party.
Yeah, and here's another thing that I'm worried about, Joe. And that is what I see is that in Lake County, there's a lot of the school districts now are thinking about the earned income tax. They know that the taxpayers, the voters, do not have an appetite to approve any more property tax levies, so they're going for an earned income tax levy. Here's what could happen in the state. The state of Ohio, and Vivek Ramaswamy is saying that he's going to eliminate the income tax. That income tax right now brings in $10.9 billion, which is basically almost 50% of what the property taxes bring in. But they don't answer the question, well, how are you going to replace the $10.9 billion? It tells me that they don't need it. So if they can eliminate $10.9 billion out of their budget, why can't they eliminate property taxes for seniors, which would only cost $3 billion? Something is not adding up at all. And I'm just saying, we've got the numbers. Pleshnik has talked about it repeatedly and stuff as well, that it would only be like $3-4 billion. You could have all the seniors, everybody 65 and over in Ohio, they could live property tax free in their primary residence. It can be done. Here's some of the numbers here. Listen to this as we look at the state budget. I'll get Jonathan in here. When Strickland was out there as governor, Strickland started in 2008 with a $52 billion state budget. That's what it was in 2008, $52 billion. By the time Strickland left, it was only a $56 billion. So actually, Strickland as a Democrat did pretty good. Kasich took over, and by the time Kasich left, it had ballooned to $67 billion. The state budget, $67 billion. DeWine took over, and it's just been skyrocketing since. His first year, $70 billion. His second year, $73. His third year, $80. Then $82. Then it ballooned to $97. Then $95. $99. Now it's at $100. So that's he's been the real culprit more than anything. DeWine has just taken the state of Ohio and just expanded. But another thing I want to bring to your point is it doesn't have to operate that way. If you look at Florida and you look at Governor Ron DeSantis and what he's been doing, the last 4 years, the state budget of Florida has not increased. Let me say that again. The last 4 years, the state budget for Florida has not increased. As a matter of fact, if you want to get technical, this last year, this most recent state budget, he actually cut it. So the most recent state budget is less than it was 4 years ago. That's Florida. It's right now at $117 billion. $117 billion. Our state budget is right now at $100 billion. But look at the difference in the two states. I mentioned that directly, Joe, to an individual today. In fact, he came over and he said, "Mom, I'm not going to sign, or why should I sign?" And I talked about the Ohio budget being $100 billion. And he just looked me right in the face and said that I was lying. It's not $100 billion. So what we have is an uneducated group of people out there that just do not understand how local and or state government works, or the money involved. But I can tell you what I'm concerned about is that if the state eliminates the income tax, that $10.9 billion, then they're going to be able to brag that the state of Ohio is following the other states and we don't have an income tax, but all they're going to do is they're going to push that to the local level, where all of the school districts and and those municipalities that can collect an income tax, they'll go to the income tax model, and without actually cutting the expenses of all of the taxing authorities in the state. We've got too many school districts, and we've got too many taxing authorities throughout the state that are accumulating massive amounts of rainy day funds. They're just draining the taxpayers dry.
Yeah. Okay. Put that back up for a minute, Kent. Let me just read that, if you would, please. All right. The new flat rate only benefited the higher middle income, those making $100,000.
That's correct.
They saw,
and that's what they want to do with the income tax.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
The highest income is where you saw a real savings. Yeah, if you're making 150, 200,000, something like that, you really saw a great savings. But the other, if you're making like less than 100 grand, it didn't affect you at all. You're paying the same in state income tax. So that doesn't cut.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely with that listener on that. The elimination of the income tax is going to help the donor base of the legislators.
The one thing we cannot allow is we cannot allow for city income taxes to just generate the money. If the schools are going to go that route, we cannot allow that to happen. We got to fight like heck. We have to abolish the property taxes for the schools. The state needs to take over the school system. They need to take over the school system. And get Jonathan in here. Jonathan, we got to let the state take over the school system, man. That's the only way to solve this issue.
No. That's the worst idea I think I've heard in the years that
so
you and I
you don't agree with that?
Together.
You don't.
The state has already taken over the school system at the behest of the federal Department of Education. And
what I'm saying is financially they need to.
No, they already did
take it over.
They've done it at the behest of teachers unions and the federal Department of Education. So let's put some numbers behind this and unpack this whole thing. I thought it might be an interesting exercise to expand on the conversation I've brought to this show a few times, focusing on Lake County as an example. So at a few points, you've heard me mention that most recent, actually, I think I may need to update them. So this may be 1 year out, but the total numbers for the county of Lake was about $562 million a year that they're spending on education. So there's all kinds of bad stuff happening in the schools, and they continue to spend all money in all sorts of different ways that apparently have little to do with education and properly preparing and educating children. I thought it would be interesting to expand that a little bit and focus on Cuyahoga County. It's going to take a little while to work through the numbers. There are a lot of school districts in Cuyahoga County, but they make a good test subject as well. Before I jump into these numbers, two important things to remember, and Brian already touched on one of them. About 2/3, or roughly 60% on average, of your tax bill, your property taxes, goes to pay for education. So what's happening with that money? I mentioned Lake County spending $562 million thereabouts. This is according to what they're reporting to the state of Ohio. So you may not like what I have to say, but if you refute it, you need to go to the Ohio Department of Education, because that's exactly where I'm pulling these numbers from. On one of my screens, I'm looking at the Ohio Department of Education website. So in looking at Cuyahoga County, the other piece of information that's important to remember, if you talk to families who consider enrolling their kids in private school, you'll often hear them throw out big numbers, like it costs $15,000 to $20,000 a year to send your kids to these private schools. And sometimes in the elite private schools in the upper grades, you might have $23,000 to $26,000 a year. That is a big number. However, let's take a look just beginning at the top of the list in Cuyahoga County. Bay Village is spending just under $20,000 a year. When you add educational service units or educational service centers, I think you're a little bit north. Beechwood has reported $46,826 spend per pupil. That may be a new high score for Beechwood. Bedford, with a total budget of over just about $75 million a year, is spending $26,274 per pupil. In a future conversation, or if you're curious, you should get into what's happening in the education environment. Are these kids actually graduating and leaving with the ability to read and do math, etc.? Do they have an understanding of the structure of our government? I think fairly universally, the answer is no. We've got school districts like Brooklyn spending $24,600 a year. Chagrin Falls, $27,626 per year. We've got Chagrin Falls, Cleveland Heights. They have about $139 million a year budget in Cleveland Heights. That's where the money is going. So if you have that question, and I've had it for years, and I keep driving it into this conversation on Ohio Political News, how much money is being collected? Where is it siphoned off to? Where is it disappearing off into? How many consultants? How many outside third parties? How many different political coffers? How many different unions collect it? And where does all that money go? If applied strictly to educational endeavors, I suggest that a school district with $138 million, $139 million a year in budget could do some pretty amazing things. You look at how the money is applied in private sector, and you see better examples of use of those funds. So hopefully what I've done here, and this is just the beginning, I've gotten from Bay Village, which is alphabetically first, and I've gotten down to Cleveland City Schools. At that point, just that small block is $1.4518 billion a year.
Yeah, sickening,
flowing just to those school districts.
Pretty sickening.
There is enough money. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. There's plenty of money. We're not putting it toward the right purposes. It disappears into administrative waste, fraud, bloat, and abuse.
It's funny you brought up Cleveland Heights, because that's where I'm at in Cleveland Heights, and we pay 74% of our taxes go to the public schools. I know you say it's 60 to 65%, but there are districts like ours which it's even higher. It's around 74%. And there's some big houses in Cleveland Heights that were built a while back, and they're monstrosities, and the people that pay, my God, how much are they paying? $30,000 sometimes, a year in property taxes. It's just so insane. And what are we getting for that? What are we getting for the amount of money that you pay every single year, regardless of if you have kids? As long as you are breathing and you're still on this planet, you're paying to that school system. It's atrocious. But Cleveland Heights is unlike any other school system. It's very similar to Shaker. But they never saw a levy they didn't like, so they will pass any and all levies. People don't have money to fix their houses up anymore. And to be honest with you, Cleveland Heights, the whole structure of the city now is starting to go downhill. It's degrading. It's just not the city it once was. It was a real prestigious city at one time. It ain't that now. It's downgraded itself considerably, and it's going to continue. It's going to continue to go that way. It's allowing
itself to tax itself into oblivion. And just to round out those numbers, because you bring up Cleveland Heights as an example, spending $28,494 per pupil.
That's insane.
Those are all in costs.
28,000, yeah.
Yeah, 28,000. Well, that's actually part of the number. When you include the other set of numbers, it's closer to 30,000. It's around $30,000 a year, and they are reporting $138,573,438 was their budget. That's what they spent last year.
And nobody is taking any time to really scrutinize these budgets. You have the treasurer. That guy is on board with the school system. Obviously, he's the school treasurer, and so there's nobody. We're going to wrap this up because we've got Jeff Skinner coming on. But this is disgusting, because like Cleveland Heights is one of the worst. Brian, $30,000 a kid. If you look at where they rank, they're just a little bit above the Cleveland public school system. You have 5,000 students, and you have to spend.
Why can't we have the schools compete for the children? Why does a child have to belong to a certain, just because you live in the district?
Well, the voucher's got to do that now. You got to grab a voucher and get out to where there's a legitimate school. That's my recommendation.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I don't, Jonathan. I'm not. I don't disagree with those numbers at all. I've seen those numbers myself, and but there's no one. The budget commission, which every county has a budget commission, and they've been given greater authority to take a look at the school budgets. But nobody's going to have the political spine to go against these schools if they say, you've got too much money in reserves or you're spending too much money. That budget commission is not going to be able to make any meaningful changes in the school budget. I've seen the school board meetings where with the auditors, and they hand in their budget, and it is what it is. It goes down to the state. Then the state really can reverse engineer the whole thing to say, this is what the schools need, so this is what the property values need to be.
Yep.
All right, very good with that. I think we're going to try to get Jeff Skinner if he's with us. Jeff, you out there? I think he's trying to join. We want to talk about the Haitians and stuff.
Joe, while you're working on getting Jeff Skinner in, I'm just going to throw this number out as well. For anybody concerned about Cleveland Heights, including Joe and anybody else, and it should be everybody, they're reporting 48.9% academic proficiency as a school district. That's Cleveland Heights University Heights City School District. Cleveland Heights University Heights, 48.9%. And that's on that softened Ohio academic proficiency standard.
Right.
So they've weakened it. They've softened it. They're trying to hide the fact that it's a weaker academic proficiency standard by changing what used to be the letter grades that everybody understood to now they have, I don't know, whatever the hieroglyphics are. It's like a moon and a star and a unicorn, whatever it is.
Star system, yeah.
Some kind of star system. I don't know, whatever that nonsense is. They're trying to hide the fact that it is a weakened, softened academic proficiency standard, and even weakened. Cleveland Heights is reporting resulting under 50% academic proficiency as a school district with that astronomical 138, almost $139 million budget, spending $28,494 per pupil. So it's the people out there that are not paying attention to this, every once in a while I get them. It's maddening, but then people try to tell me that I'm anti-education or I don't like kids or something. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm just reading the reports that are coming from the state of Ohio.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, what gets really irritating after a while, Jeff, can you hear me? Are you out there? Jeff Skinner, can you hear me? Somehow or another, he's having trouble connecting. I saw him come in and out a couple times, but he said he doesn't have audio or something. Hey, keep trying or come in, try again, or I may have to reboot with the Zoom and give that a try and anything. But what's so freaking annoying is that the people like in Cleveland Heights, what they will do is if you say it's for the kids, they will pass the levy. They're all brainwashed into this because it doesn't matter how much money you give. How can we give any more money to the school system? We're not getting any results, okay? That's where it's at. And to put it and sugarcoat it any other way is insane.
Yeah, if they continue to vote for any more property tax levies or these new earned income tax levies, they're funding their own demise. It's just a matter of time. The whole thing will collapse.
Yep.
It's very annoying. I'm in the app and I can see and hear you guys. Jeff Skinner, you can see and hear us. I cannot see you. I cannot see you. I don't understand this. What the heck happened? I thought maybe I have to reset. Is
there any chance maybe Kent, are you with us? Can Kent step in and try and help get Jeff Skinner in? Because we want to hear from Jeff Skinner.
All right, I'm going to reboot. I'm going to go out and reboot and everything like that. Listen, Ken, you got something here. How long is this video? How long is the video for Ohio Tax?
I was just flipping through some photos if you wanted to look at them, and you can talk over the video. The audio was not up, but all you got to do is check the Zoom manager, right click on one of the Zoom links, and make sure he's in. He should be in.
Okay.
I recognize some of those people. There's Leonard.
Yeah, I see
Commissioner
Leonard.
Plechnik.
We got him. We said it couldn't be done, so we didn't try. Oh, wait a minute. There he is. How you doing, Jeff? Good to see you.
Doing good, doing
Give
good.
you a little applause here for making the effort. Anytime you make the effort to come on, and we appreciate it very much. Good to see you. Okay,
Thank you
the
for having
Ohio
me.
Register, and we got to talk a little bit about what's going on in Springfield, your favorite place in town, because you grew up there, and there's a lot happening in Springfield right now. There's two things I want to get into because I saw both of these on the Ohio Register. One is that the TPS has ended. That's the Temporary Protected Status has ended. So Trump can go in there and start getting the Haitians out of there anytime he wants to. I don't think he has yet, but he certainly can. And then also with this tax abatement stuff that you wrote about, well, 100% tax abatement, 15 years on any new projects coming in to Springfield. I'm kind of curious how that all ties in with the Haitians. I think it does. But let's talk first, if we can, for a minute. And if we can here for the Springfield news here. What's going on there as far as the 12 to 15,000 Haitian immigrants in there and the protected status that they're under? Can you just give us a brief background on that, would you please?
Yeah, so as you kind of stated, the temporary protective status has been removed thanks to the Supreme Court ruling. And, in terms of how many people are in Springfield from Haiti, those numbers are not really known. The state has done an abysmal job, perhaps intentionally, in some people's opinion, to not track or monitor that. Some people have said 12, 15, some people have said up to 20,000. But that's roughly a third of the population, and how many of them are eligible for deportation is dependent on a number of factors, right? I mean, obviously we have situations in which many of them have come to Springfield to give birth. And that's something that, I have heard from people who have worked in the hospital networks, who have connections to the nonprofit agencies like Rocking Horse Center and other agencies in the area, that there are sort of a birthing mill type situation going on in Springfield, Ohio. So how many might be eligible for deportation versus, transferring over to some other type of work visa program or have now, settled roots with children and birthings is unknown as well.
Hey, did that anchor baby, is that part of the law? If they have children, can we still deport them, the Haitians? I know that here's what I've been looking into that too. I saw some startling numbers. It was like 23% in Clark County of all the new births were from these Haitian women. 23%. So that's a lot. Who are here on a temporary status. They came over because of the earthquake in 2010, from what I understand. So they've been here 16 years on a temporary status. So it's about time that they kind of went back to their country. Now they're saying, well, the country, it's in turmoil and everything like that. Well, then fix it. It's your country. Why are you still here? But I guess the question, with the anchor baby thing, is that something that is that part of it or not, the anchor baby?
So under TPS, you can be deported even with offspring, but it does provide a legal avenue to try to block it, right? And I think that's a lot of what is going on right now is you have legal aid services and nonprofits and NGOs that are providing, services and avenues and pathways for, at this stage, either TPS recipients to barricade themselves in their homes, which has been a lot of the instructions that are being given out from left-leaning social media outlets. They're saying, don't answer your door, stay inside. You don't have to engage with these people. And then legal aid services are then further directing them in other ways in which they can combat it. So there are strategies that are being implemented by organizations that are facilitating their stay to try to fight this.
Okay, so let's go back to Haiti now. So what I understand is that the Department of Homeland Security is offering a government-paid flight for them to leave, and also $2,600 in payment for them to leave. But Governor DeWine has said that he has gotten no word from the Trump administration about them coming in to do anything yet. Okay, so they haven't told him anything. But he is totally, if you've heard anything about DeWine, he is totally against it. He is totally against removing the Haitians. Now, my question here is, let's get into this here for a minute. Are the Haitians as valuable as, like DeWine says? Is it like this city is not going to be able to survive if the Haitians move out? What's your thoughts on that? Because I have my thoughts, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how willing the local industries and government are to course correct what the market actually is. So the reality is, and we could talk for hours and hours about the origin of where this came from, where these temporary protective status labor influxes originated, who facilitated it, who was driving it, and why. But the reality is from the Chamber of Commerce standpoint, this is a market driver, right? It's low cost imported labor to undercut domestic workers. That's the long and the short of it in terms of the economics. Now, will Springfield survive without them? That depends on companies like McGregor Steel and other companies potentially being willing to raise their wages to a livable wage, because conversely, what's been going on is they're paying, in my opinion, probably substandard wages in order to facilitate, houses that have 15 plus workers living in them with other government subsidies, creating a sustainable model of labor replacement, right? That's how all of this replacement migration always happens. There's NGOs, there's nonprofits that get federal grants that facilitate this mass influx. If that is removed, your cost of labor goes up inevitably. So how does the city, deal with that? Are they willing to let the market course correct on it, or are they going to try to fight it? And that is, what I could see is they're trying to fight it. They're trying to provide incentives for the businesses to still remain, profitable in that short-term window, no matter if it is destructive to the city itself. And that comes into kind of what you were asking about before, which is this new economic model through community reinvestment areas, or what they call the CRA program, in which the commissioners introduced this, in a hearing, or was introduced to the commissioners rather in the hearing prior to the most recent meeting of regular session that they had. And the idea is to give 100% tax abatement on property restorations for 15 years, as well as incentives already given to new commercial builds to incentivize businesses that are either already here or that might want to come to the area, independent of a low-paid labor pipeline. And, I see this as destructive. I see it as a short-term, narrow view, tunnel vision tactic that is trying to manipulate the market so that they can still incentivize some level of economic, growth per se. But it's always going to bite them in the butt in the end, because they don't have income tax right now. Income tax is completely flatlined in the city of Springfield. So their emergency services, fire department specifically, is completely funded through federal grants. The federal government subsidizes their fire department. If those grants vanish, they would have no fire department. That's just a fact. And to go even further into this and to say, we're not going to just, we're accepting the flatlined income tax, but we're also going to start cutting into our property tax valuations on top of this. It's a recipe for disaster long term, in my opinion.
No, you're absolutely correct. Let me play this a minute. Listen to this.
Initial reaction to that.
Well, it's a mistake. It's not good for the United States, and it's not good for the state of Ohio. These are people who have helped Springfield really come back. Springfield has been making a real comeback.
Okay, Springfield's been making a real comeback. I'm going to play a little bit more here, but I got a couple things to say. I've been through Springfield multiple times in the last couple of years. If it's making a comeback, we're in big trouble. That's what I got to say.
Haitians who are living there and employed there, they came there to work, and they came there because there were jobs that were not being filled by other people. And so if you talk to the employers in Springfield who are employing the Haitians, they will tell you that.
Is that true? Is that true? They're doing the jobs that nobody else will. Here's what's going on. Let me just tell you what's going on already. We'll just cut through all the fat. Here's what's going on. Number one, these guys, they're employing them at sub-minimum wage levels, I'm sure, but they're also have them all set up so that they receive the SNAP benefits, all the welfare, everything else. So they're getting all of that, and then they're working, but they're working under the table for the big businesses at a very reduced rate. And that's what I think is going on. What do you think?
Well, I think there's an element of that. I also think that, I've heard a lot of speculation that many of these members of what we'll call them new visitors is the term that they like to use, have received small business loans Some of them are looking at purchasing property. So there's now financial investment in them, which I think is more in line with what DeWine is potentially concerned about. When it gets to that state level, it's less about local businesses like McGregor, steel or something like that. It's more about like, okay, how is this going to impact the housing market? How is it going to impact local banks that are sort of the pillars of keeping the whole city afloat? And I think that's really what they did, is they potentially got themselves into a big hole and a big mess by giving financial loans out, whether small business or home, to people that were never meant to stay here permanently.
All right, let me just finish this up. I'm not sure if DeWine has anything good to say. Let's just listen to this.
People who have opened restaurants, they've opened other businesses, they've rehabbed houses, they've created jobs as well as filled jobs, and so to lose them.
But he's very ambiguous. Oh, they've rehabbed houses, and they opened restaurants, and we can't live without them.
And have them not be able to work anymore and possibly taken out of this country is frankly a blow to Springfield, and it's a blow to the state of Ohio.
All right, let's go around the horn here a minute, Brian. So they've been in here for 16 years. They have a huge birth rate. They're not learning. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to say real fast. They're not learning the language because the Springfield schools have all these tutors. 1 in 6 kids in the public school has to have be in a class with a special tutor to learn English. And you know who those people are, the Haitians.
To me, it just seems modern day slavery. It's just we'll bring these people over and we'll pay them substandard wages. That's what I hear. And so now we've got to, backfill it on the backs of the taxpayers. It doesn't make sense to me. I say we need to send them back.
Yeah, and temporary means temporary. Temporary means temporary. That's kind of the way I understood it to be. Let me cut over here. So, do you think temporary means temporary? Are the Haitians allowed to vote? It depends. Who registers them and everything. Don't get me started on voter integrity tonight, because I don't want to go that angle. Yeah, I don't want to go that angle, but I'll guarantee you a lot of the Haitians are voting, or somebody is voting for them or anything. But go ahead.
Well, I won't talk your ear off on that. But many moons ago, as my grandfather would say, I did an interview with Marcel Sturbich long before he had decided to run for Secretary of State. And one of the things that we talked about was voter integrity. And in that interview article, viewers can take a look at it on the OhioRegister.com. He allowed me to take a look at some records from Clark County's voter registration database, which did show evidence of non-citizens registered to vote in Clark County, one of the few that had them. So, are there Haitians that are registered to vote that shouldn't be? I think that is a very strong possibility.
It's just not acceptable.
It is not. It's illegal, for crying out loud.
Oh, right.
But they are
illegal.
illegals. So if they're
all right, so
illegal,
welcome back onto the show.
And they're doing something that's illegal, maybe those two kind of cancel each other out with that. Go ahead.
All right, so welcome back onto the show, Jeff Skinner. I'm glad to see that you got the dress code memo. So the first thing, you did answer one of the questions I have: which county is the Springfield in? So there are actually looks like there's a Springfield in Clark, Lucas, Mahoning, and Summit. But you did point out that it's Clark County. Just to sort of tie things back together for a little bit of fun for this program, tying it back together with what we were doing before Jeff Skinner joined us. The reported annual school budget, the most recent spend for Springfield City School District in Clark County, was a total budget of $151.5 million, reporting spending $21,157 per student. So we can go further and look at academic performance, proficiency, and a breakdown of pupil enrollment. I suspect that we have a lot of people who are not actually citizens of the United States in those roles. So that's a topic for another conversation. Bringing us back to what Jeff is talking about, in addition to going to theohioregister.com and visiting. Jeff has been reporting on Springfield for many months now and does a terrific job. In addition to that, I've stumbled onto something. There's a great post from Eric J. Brewer. Eric with a C. Eric J. Brewer goes into detail about the background between Mike DeWine and Haiti, and the unfortunate early death of Mike DeWine's daughter, then opening a school in Haiti, how it was funded, and then gets into some projections of the number of Haitians who have come. So Mike DeWine is in the argument that's made very well here by Eric J. Brewer. This, by the way, I found on Facebook, but I think Eric Brewer posts on multiple different platforms. This goes into some of the details and really makes a clear argument that this is a voter replacement process, and actually takes it a step further and says this isn't speculation, it's happening in parts of America. There are now, I think he says in this article, 10 different cities or municipalities in the state of California that now have a larger voting block of Chinese than, and these are immigrant Chinese, than multi-generational American citizens, and they're voting in everything. The new sheriff, the bursar, the director of finance, the city council. They are in this instance, they're voting in like-minded people and basically orchestrating a political takeover. The suggestion here, and there may be some early indications or implications in Springfield, but the implications are when you put that much money into replacing a native voting bloc with an immigrant population, they're bound to vote and act and behave in an isolated, protective manner if they are not showing any indication of wanting to immigrate into incorporate into their new environment. That is definitely a concern with Haitians. So I'm not sure that was clear. Hopefully I can clean this up with the following statement. If you get people that immigrate into the United States from virtually anywhere on earth that love America and are willing and interested in embracing American values, then they can very easily, and do and have for generations, become part of the fabric of our society. But if you get these insular, isolated blocks of people who seem to dislike America and want to see it fundamentally change, they can act as a voting bloc to basically capture parts of America from within. That is a major concern. The last thing I want to throw out there, and I want to put this in Jeff's lap, because I think it has everything to do with local media in Springfield and elsewhere. Shame these people, shame the politicians, the media organizations, the companies that are creating this greased skid track to slave labor. I'm with Brian on this. This is a slave labor that's brought in on the backs of American taxpayers. We're financing the lifestyle of these slaves that are being paid under minimum wage. That's why these politicians and companies don't want to give up on them, because they can get super cheap labor. We should not be allowing this to happen. And all those NGOs and these supposed churches, I saw somebody posting on some pastor, I'm going to air quote that's a pastor. Those people need to be called out and shamed publicly, because what they are doing is advocating, in my book, they are advocating for slavery.
Okay, now the point I want to make real quick here, Jeff, is that, they may be getting paid less than minimum wage or something like that, but they're still getting all the benefits illegally. I mean, they're working under the table for a cash for some of these companies and stuff like that. They've got to be. But at the same time, they're getting free housing. At the same time, they're getting free food. They're taking advantage of the complete welfare system. And that's a strain on the city. That's a strain on us as the taxpayers. So So that's what the way I kind of envision it as being a strain. DeWine is against it because he says the workers filled positions that were difficulty in filling. He said they opened businesses, they rented homes, they contributed to the economic recovery of Springfield. And he said removing thousands of workers would hurt manufacturing, restaurants, healthcare, and other local industries. Again, they're all on Medicaid, so I don't know how it's going to be helping with damaging the healthcare system. It seems like it's take from the taxpayers and not giving a whole lot back. And that seems to be with most refugees that come into this country.
Well, Jeff might have a guess here as to the number of Haitians who are actually employed and working. If let's say the numbers are right, and I mean, according to speculation here, and the records aren't good, it's somewhere between, let's say, 10,000 and 20,000 Haitians that have been brought in and imported. So let's take the low number. Let's say it's 10,000. I think it's probably a lot higher, more like 20,000. But just using the low number, if there are 10,000 Haitians there in this small city of Springfield, and if DeWine's right, how many are working? Is it 500? Is it 400 out of 10,000?
Do we have any numbers on that? Are they even? Are those numbers even generate? Can we generate those numbers? Because my theory is they're working underneath the table. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I can tell, they don't seem to be working under the table. I mean, some of these companies that employ them are legitimate. Whether or not they're employing them as like independent contract labor or something like that to avoid income tax, getting pulled out of their pay stubs, I have no idea. But I did want to speak, if I could have a couple minutes to speak about what Jonathan had said, which is regarding, shaming politicians. And, I want to say this very as concisely and clearly as I can, is that, I didn't just grow up in Springfield. My family has generational history there. My great-great-great-grandfather, Jacob Barr, immigrated to Springfield, Ohio as a farmer in the 1870s. And generationally, we've been members of St. Bernard's Parish ever since then. I was baptized there. My family helped build the auxiliary structure on their campus. I went to school there. My grandfather paid for it. So I have a vested interest in seeing the city flourish and be successful. And the initiatives and we'll say plans that have been rolled out by the city manager and the commissions have been utterly catastrophic, including the influx. But more than that, to your point about tracking, there isn't a mechanism of tracking this. And this gets into the shaming aspect of it, which is we have in that district a state senator named Kyle Kaler, who ran on a platform of invoking, in my opinion, what I would say is the suffering and pain of people in that district. People who have, lost their livelihoods, their well-being, the safety of their communities to this influx. And once he got into office, he's done effectively nothing about this. His legislative action has been zero in regards to doing anything, introducing legislation to track, to monitor where these individuals are coming from, what organizations are busing them in, because they're not coming in. They're coming in from out of state. They're being driven in on unmarked buses into Myers parking lot. So who is doing it? Where are they coming from? These are things that can be introduced on a state level with legislation. We can be tracking that. We can be investigating with local committees and commissions allegations of police misconduct, which we've talked about on this program before, of Springfield Police Department allegedly intimidating motel workers into not cooperating with ICE should they show up. Where is the legislative action or the investigative committee action on this? You, Mr. Kaler, have been elected to do something about this issue, and you've done nothing about it. You prefer instead, I guess, to ride a horse in the parade and do some princess waves at the crowd. I would prefer something more substantive than that.
Oh, come on. Where's your parade?
Well, I've got a connected question.
Like, but one quick question here, and I'll go right to you, Jonathan. 1 second. I wanted to swerve into the tax abatement, but if your question is on something he just said, go ahead. You may as well. Let's keep continuity.
Well, yeah,
here.
Actually, it's on something you just said. You brought up the city manager. Isn't it the case that the city manager in Springfield also owns some rental properties? And there's some allegations, I don't know where we stand with them, that the city manager is renting some of the properties that he owns to some of these Haitians. In which case, if that proves true, then the city manager is conflicted out. In my book, there should be an immediate recusal from any sort of legislative or decision-making process, or perhaps better, just to initiate an immediate recall of the city manager, because this is a big enough issue. If you find this key decision maker, the city manager of Springfield is pocketing government money, some subsidies to cover, and I'm going to add to that my understanding, and this is my understanding from looking into the issue. I'm sure Jeff knows more about this, but it's been said that some of these properties, you might have a 4-bedroom home that might have 25 Haitians living in it, that they just set up a whole bunch of bunks and cots and sleeping bags on the floor. And then lo and behold, if you're getting government money, that's whatever it is, $1,000 a month per head for subsidies to cover housing. And you're talking about suddenly having $25,000 a month of income from a rental property. That if true, conflicts out the city manager, in my book, from any discussion.
Right, and that's why they're doing it. So I'll get back to Jeff here in 1 second, but I want to answer that text question there. Do the Haitians own property and pay property tax? My answer to that is no. They're staying there with Section 8 housing or something along those lines, as we just said, and the landlords are being reimbursed a certain amount for every Haitian in a home, which is why they're piling 8, 10 of them into a house. At least that's what I've read. Go ahead.
So to the property ownership, I believe some of them actually are. And that's one of the things that, ironically enough, the clip that you played after we spoke of DeWine mentioned the fact that many of them are buying property and many of them are buying or starting businesses. They've been given loans for these things. Whether or not they should have been because of their temporary status is a whole other question, but that is something that was facilitated. To Jonathan's point, to clarify, I think there's potentially conflation of two different situations going on right now. So Mayor Rob Rue actually is the one who owns properties, and it has been confirmed that he does rent them to, or has rented them to, Haitians, potentially under TPS status. So that is the mayor, Rob Rue. The city manager, Brian Heck, is under investigation for a completely separate matter. There were a number of letters that were sent to apparently members of Springfield commissioners or governance. They put him on administrative leave because, I'll ask this: how is this a family-friendly program, or can
Hell no, it ain't a family-friendly program. Hell no.
Parents, plug your children's ears.
Yes, please do. The allegation, and this is an allegation, right? It's being investigated. We don't know if it's true, but one of the letters allegedly states that Brian Heck, after a commission meeting some time ago, removed his genitals and placed them on the face of some member of commission staff while they were sleeping. And there was potentially photographs of this. And this plays into the allegations of why he's, on administrative leave right now, pending an investigation. He has denied the claims, of course, but you look at the structure and the setup of the Springfield government right now, and it's unbelievably nonsensical in everything that it does and how it acts, in the lack of morality or virtue or ethics, any level.
Unbelievable. I got to get Brian in here because I think, Brian, you might have to leave or something, so I'll only give you a chance here to say something.
I'm just shaking my head when I just heard Jeff tell us that. There's just no way that if proven, if found to be true, I think they just need to clean up the Springfield completely. I mean, need to have a whole new government in there, and I don't know how you do that. How do you keep on operating? But somebody's made some very bad decisions in Springfield, over the years, and it has not been helped at all by DeWine. I'm questioning whether that guy has made any good decisions for the state of Ohio in his as a governor. It's been a flaming disaster.
Yeah, without a doubt. I want to go back to the tax abatement here for a minute, if I could, because that was something else I wanted to get a little bit more information from you and everything. And I know you kind of mentioned it, Jeff, real fast, but it kind of flew over my head, and I just want to reiterate that. So what is going on right now? What is going on in Springfield where they're giving 100% tax abatement to some of these companies coming in to do any kind of building or renovation projects. So in essence, they won't be paying any property taxes for the next 15 years or so. What is the rationale behind that?
Well, to clarify, it's not that they won't pay any property tax. It's a decrease in property tax. So they don't pay property taxes on, we'll say, new developments to an existing property. So if they renovate, if they increase size, if there's any new business generation in terms of usage that would typically increase property tax valuation, that gets frozen. So they still pay taxes on the soil. They're just not paying taxes on any new valuation or financial incentive that might be there for businesses to expand or grow. So it's a potential strategy that is sometimes used by municipalities to encourage economic growth. You say, hey, property, businesses are not going to have to pay, increased valuation if you decide to expand or hire more people or do more business or buy more properties, to build out your business. But the short term costs on that, you have to think about the fact that why the timing lines up very suspiciously with the ending of TPS, the concerns that all these businesses have that spoke during the hearing in which this proposal was launched, about how they're already paying high construction costs and things of this nature. And many of the construction labor force is made up of TPS workers. So they're concerned about having to pay domestic wages, obviously. And so this is a tactic, in many people's opinion, to offset the cost of the vanishing TPS labor pipeline.
Okay, because just so everybody understands, what they're doing in Springfield is a little different. They are the city, and the entire city is going to just be blanketed with any kind of new renovation projects and anything new with no property tax. Or, like you said, they pay a small percentage, but most of it is no property taxes or anything on it. And then I wanted to know, because that's weird for an entire city to do that. You might give an individual company, something. An individual manufacturer, you might give them a tax break to lure them in. But this is like anybody, everybody, okay? So that's what caught my attention. It seems like it would be devastating to the community, but how is it tied to the Haitians? And your response is, because this both happens simultaneously, they have to be connected. Your response to that is what? The cheap labor is going away, so now they can't afford to pay property taxes?
Correct. Yeah, I think that's a large part of it. I think the other part of it is a lot of construction firms use TPS labor. So you can look up the statistics about that across the country, about what percentage of construction labor is made up of TPS and what the economic impact would be percentage-wise. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but it is there and it is substantive. And that is, while TPS was not specifically discussed at the hearing, its echoes felt, right? The companies and firms that are going to be most impacted by, the absence of TPS will benefit, conversely, from the expansion of this CRA program, the Community Reinvestment Area program. And the way that it worked before is that they would draw these geographic lines on the map and say, okay, this territory gets a CRA, tax abatement. And what they're proposing is they just expand that territory to the entire city. So yeah, long term, it's going to decrease property tax revenue for the city and for the next 10 to 15 years, however long they extend it, at a time when they already have flatlined income tax. So what revenue are they bringing in, and how much more are they going to have to go to the federal government to beg for dollars to keep their services and structures afloat? Part of the problem that anyone with longitudinal thinking can acknowledge when they look at Springfield is how much they're expending funds for things like public-private partnership think tanks like Springfield 2051, to create agendas and initiatives for the commissioners to vote on. They have no problem spending money on that. They have no problem, wasting money on these initiatives, but they have no funds for their emergency services, for infrastructure, for anything of actual value or benefit to the taxpayers. And I think that's the great disconnect that I don't know how that can be bridged in the commissioner's mind, but something has to something has to give there. I don't know what's happening, but you would hope that at some point logic will prevail.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Here is the Springfield tax gamble TPS ends. Yeah, we could talk about this probably for a long, long time. It's so interesting. But I'll say this in closing with this whole discussion here. The reason DeWine, in my opinion, is trying to make it sound so great and that we can't deport them and everything is that, when you shine a light on something, it exposes. You get exposed. And I think it's just another issue where he doesn't want to get exposed. He doesn't want the light shining on him to see that this was not a good idea. There's no way you can flood a city with a third of the population, basically, with Haitians who can't speak the language or anything like that, and then just say it's such a great thing. No, it wasn't. And I've been through Springfield. You can't tell me that they are at 100% employment. They're not. They need these people who are not Haitians need jobs.
Yeah, and the irony of it is amongst the unemployment, numbers that they have and the homeless population that they have, which is ever expanding. The mayor, Rob Rue, had the gall last year to go into one of the commission meetings and make a statement stating that there are enough jobs for everyone. And I found that just insulting and appalling. That he would say that as if it is and this is the line that they've always been parroting for the entirety that this has been going on, is that if you want a job, you can get it. You're the barrier. That's what they want to throw out there. This argument that residents and people, citizens of Springfield who have lived there their whole lives are unwilling to work. That's the argument that they say. They're unwilling to work. And you look at people that are employing TPS Haitians, they'll say that Springfielders have drug problems. They don't show up on time, all this stuff. And it's just, it's insulting. It's disgusting. I think that mentality needs to stop. And, people, as Jonathan said, should be shamed for using that argument, because you guys planted your flag in Springfield, Ohio. These companies that did it, you came over there. Okay, you're going to come over there. You're going to insult the residents, the citizens, the people who built the city. You're going to say, oh, you're the problem. I don't know. I think that's the wrong tactic. I think they need to apologize.
Absolutely. I want to get Jonathan in here. Hey, Jonathan. Hey, we're probably going to wrap things up early tonight, so I'll give you the last word. Anything you need to say to your good buddy here. And wait. Commissioners should follow Pleshnik's lead. Start saying no to bad ideas. Yeah, we need to have Pleshnik.
That's all our representative government would actually take it one step further. Our representatives, when we elect them to office, should remember that they're there to be our representative voice. The ones that get into office and just think that it's a primetime opportunity to line their pockets and serve the will of corporate interests, and that's just it's created this uniparty. I've said it before, and I'm going to keep saying it. The way that we fight back and reclaim our voice and our vote in representative government is precinct strategy. There's 2 websites. You can go to the national, actually 3 now. There's a new one. It rolled out from a great group. It's a collaboration. It's precinctprojectusa.org is the new one. We've got ohioprecinctstrategy.org and precinctstrategy.com. Those are ways of we, the people, getting involved at the local level. I guess I want to wrap things up with Jeff by saying thank you again for coming on the program. We appreciate you, all that you do at the Ohio Register. Remember, that's a website, and you can get email updates with the important work that they're doing at the Ohio Register. You can go there. You can also find posts on social media like Facebook, the Ohio Register. It's Jeff Skinner. People like Dakota Sawyer does some writing for them, and others. It's collaborative effort to try and get news and information out that matters. And actually, if you don't mind, Joe, with my last moments here, I want to ask for a favor from our listening audience. You all probably know the name Bob Frantz by now, Frantz. Bob Frantz hosts It's Strictly Speaking, Unfiltered with Bob Frantz. A few days ago, I was invited on to a debate with Bob France. I was debating Steve Loomis, who has a 31 or 35 years of law enforcement experience as a homicide detective. And we debated on flock cameras. I know, sorry, this is unrelated, but I think Jeff Skinner may still enjoy this and might have something to add or comment. But I want to ask people to find that video and provide some feedback. I know how I rate myself, and I took the rare opportunity to watch myself. I rarely ever do that, but I rewatched that because it's an important debate that's taking place. I had that opportunity, and I'd like feedback on how you think it went. So that's on mostly Rumble. Go to Rumble, find Strictly Speaking with Bob France, watch that debate. You should actually watch lots of his episodes. Bob has great guests on his program. And find me and give me your feedback, because I think what I might do is ask for a second debate. There was so much to cover. We covered a lot of ground very quickly. And I'm putting some thoughts together on that. That is my request of you, our listening audience, to watch that and give me some feedback. And with that, I'll yield the mic.
All right, 1 second here, talking about flock cameras. And before you go, Jeff, I do want to say something. Springfield, speaking of Springfield, Ohio, and flock cameras now, I was reading where they got 38 of them. They have 38 flock cameras in Springfield. And they had Mayor Rob Rue called Police Chief Elliott to the podium. And her answer was that the fixed cameras, they don't have any live streaming. They don't pan. They don't zoom. A snapshot triggered when a car crosses the frame is all that they have. The system reads the plate, the color, the make, and the model, but there's no names, no addresses to connect a car to a person, she said. And then an officer has to go into a separate state-regulated database to accomplish anything. But let me throw that at you in passing here, because it is Springfield-related. I don't know if you were following that story at all, Jeff, but do you have anything you want to say on that?
I was listening to the commission meeting when she said that, and she said that twice now. That's been the standing argument from Springfield Police Chief Ellis about that. What I'll say is, what are you looking for? You argue that you're taking a snapshot of a vehicle, but it doesn't connect to an individual. What are you tracking? What are you looking for? What are you hoping to find? What database are you cross-referencing that with? It's an asinine argument to me, because it's ultimately the connection from a vehicle to a person is the vehicle registration, right? So you're tracking to see who's coming and going in your municipality, which accounts to overreach of surveillance, warrantless surveillance. There's multiple Supreme Court cases on this in terms of GPS data on cell phones. And it is going to come to a head when one of these cases goes up before the Supreme Court on warrantless surveillance from flock cameras, because you are essentially tracking and monitoring the movements of individuals. When police go out and inevitably stop a vehicle that crosses through a flock surveillance net, they're not doing it because the vehicle committed a crime. They're doing it because there's warrants out to the individual that is behind the wheel, or so they suspect. So the idea that somehow this is an innocuous tool that just helps law enforcement and keeps everybody safe, to me is it's disingenuous, because it ignores the larger picture of what this tool is used to do, which is track and monitor the movements of people. People who might be behind the wheel of a vehicle, sure, but that's what it's there to do, and that's what it always does. And, I can't speak to the specific technology as to whether the flock camera devices that they have do not take video, or whether they just don't have access to the video. I can't speak to that unless I knew the make and model of the cameras, which they haven't been very forthcoming in disclosing. But I'm highly skeptical of any argument like that, because it's not native to the devices that Flock often issues. Further than that, they've shown on multiple occasions and instances that these cameras can be remotely hacked. You can go up to the device. You can factory reset settings like you can on a cell phone. Okay. And then gain immediate access to plug in and get the video feed on these devices. They are not secure devices at all. And that's independent of anyone who might be able to access them if they have wireless connectivity. If you're on Wi-Fi with these devices, anyone can hack into them. So it's a very silly argument. I wish that the Springfield Police Department would stop using it. My opinion, I think that they use these arguments to avoid connection to the Supreme Court cases on warrantless surveillance of GPS data on phones. I think that's the premise for it. I think that's why they try to state that it's not about tracking people, is because it would enter into the confines of the legal argument that the Supreme Court already weighed on, which makes them a Fourth Amendment violation.
Hey, Joe, what was the number you gave for Springfield? You said how many cameras?
38.
How many flock cameras?
38.
Okay, so I just used don'tgetflocked.com. Don't get flocked. And I found via web search that 45501 is a Springfield, Ohio zip code. Using that zip code, Don't Get Flocked reports 70 flock cameras in and near Springfield, Ohio. By the way, on a related note, because this ties in as well, and watch that debate to find out, hopefully you understand how things like this tie in with flock cameras and data centers, etc. I've been covering my transition to a ghost phone for the last couple of weeks. It was 2 Saturdays ago. I got a ghost phone from Mark 37, and I'm transitioning to that. So all these things tie together. If you are following this whole tech, what are they calling it? Technocracy, surveillance state move, then topics like flock cameras, data centers, smart meters, and these phones that are designed to be infinitely less trackable and don't have the creepy tech in them will interest you. I'm covering that, by the way, in a short series of videos on unwoke.academy. That is actually a website, unwoke.academy.
Well, one last question, Jeff, then, because I was getting some information about 38 cameras. Are you saying that there's a lot more than that? Do you have any idea how many might be in Springfield?
No, I don't have the specific numbers, and I think that they probably differ between who's tracking and who's revealing. I know that there's an organization, DFlock. I don't know what their website is, but the DFlock organization has an interactive map that you can go online and see, and they'll have a total tally for the Springfield area. And then, other organizations might report higher or lower depending on what their people are reporting. Because a lot of it comes down to, if they can get the records from the commissions on how many individual devices that they purchased. If those aren't widely available, then they have to rely on individual tracking. As people driving around, taking photographs and then reporting it to a centralized, entity like DFlock. So, I don't have the specific numbers on it, but 38 sounds close to where it probably is.
Well, the biggest question too is somebody just said in the text, who controls the data? We don't know where it goes. It goes into the clouds, and they can say, "Oh, it's protected," or you have to get some kind of a warrant or something to look at it. But I don't know. I don't believe anything anymore. I know that it's out there. It's out there. So. Hey, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you hanging around as long as you did. So the Ohio Register, man, get out there and read it. Read it. The Ohio Register. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. God bless.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jonathan, take care, man. See you guys.
You too. Good night, all.
Good night.